Okay, so let's do the passive, right? Um, Now we know that there are two voices. One is the active voice and the other is the passive voice. Okay, and it is only due to the verbs that we are able to convert active to passive and passive to active, right? But passive becomes a little more significant because it um, performs a number of stylistic functions also, and it's a part of popular discourses as well, and it's an essential kind of a writing or a voice in formal writings such as the research writings. Okay, now what happens is, when you are converting the voices from active to passive and passive to active, usually we convert the active voice to the passive voice. Okay, so there is a change in the order of words, and there shouldn't be a change in the sense of the sentence. Okay, um, changing the voices do not change the sense of the subject, but it is also only about the change of word order. Okay, so we already know the rule, that is a by plus subject phrase and all that, right? Now, for an example, that's a very simple example here. Something was seen by me. Now, one thing that is about the passive is, actors should have a subject. Okay, we should know who has performed the action. I saw something that is, it is important. It gives us important information about the subject also, and subject is not absent from the active voice. What happens when we convert it into passive voice is, the subject becomes a choice. Even if you do not mention the subject for a particular motive or for a particular reason, even then it gives a complete sense. There is no grammatical error. For instance, I saw something, something was seen. If you do not write by me, it's okay. Okay, in the sense that grammatically it's fine, right? So, passive voice are sometimes used to hide the doer, the actor of the action. Okay, I tidied it away. It has been tidied away by me. Optional. I bonfired a lot. A lot had been bonfired. I may view them. They may be viewed. Okay, so here, um, the examples are related to just one subject, which is I here. Okay, if a verb is presented in the passive, then the subject of that verb can be concealed by omitting the phrases. We have already done this. Consistent use of passive may sometimes give formal effect, as I've told you, in scientific writing, research papers, thesis writing. Okay. For example, those who have a science background, you write down the experiment as the test tube was filled with a 30% salt solution. Okay. Um, so, in political language, use of passive voice express concern without responsibility. Here, when I saw something, something was seen, so the responsibility of seeing or the doer of the action is not mentioned, right? There can be two reasons: politically, or in the media discourses, um, when the author wants to conceal or hide the doer. The man was killed. By whom he was killed, this is not mentioned. Okay. Maybe the person doesn't know who killed the man, or maybe the person wants to hide the information. There can be any reason. Other reason is, when the subject is not important and the focus is on the action. And here is the example of a scientific writing. We are more interested in that the test tube was filled with a 30% salt solution. On this, the focus is on this. We are more interested to know how did the experiment take place instead of the person who has done the experiment. Okay, so for that reason, we use passive voice. Other than that, passive voice gives quite a formal look to the writing. Okay, so something must be done. This is unspoken implication. By whom? Something should be done by whom? We are not putting the responsibility on anyone, but it has implied meaning. Okay, so inflation must be beaten. I'm not saying inflation must be beaten by the government, right? Or by the people, by the shopkeepers. It is just left open ended. You can choose the actor here, right? So the next task is identify the passive verb construction in text. What or who is the subject of the verb? So one thing besides doing the main idea, we are going to identify the passive verb constructions, and we will try to find out the subject of the verb which would be absent from the reading. Okay, so let's talk about 7 and do it together very, very quickly. I'm finding out that a lot of what I thought had been bonfired. Okay, had been bonfired. This is passive voice. Oxfammed, because there is a comma, that means this structure applies to this also. I thought had been bonfired, and I'm finding out a lot of what I thought had been bonfired, I thought had been oxfammed, and I thought had been used for landfill. Okay, has in fact been tidied away in sound archives. Tidied away, had been tidied away in sound archives. This is again a passive voice. Still libraries, image banks, memorabilia, mausoleums, statues, mugs, mocks. It's an odd experience to find yourself cataloged. Find yourself cataloged. Okay. Car indexed. Museumized. A speck of data for the information professionals to bounce around. It seems that as long as you are in print or on film or a name on a buff envelope in an archive somewhere, you are never truly dead now. You can be electronically colorized. This is again a passive voice. Emulsified, embellished. That is, you can be electronically colorized, electronically emulsified, electronically embellished, enhanced, coaxed towards some state of virtual reality. You can be reactivated. Wherever you have this one, B, this is an indication of the passive voice. You can be reactivated or re-embodied, simulated, and hologrammed, all of these. That means, this structure applies, B structure. You can be re-embodied. You can be simulated. You can be hologrammed. In just the last 2 years, my voice has been artificially reprocessed. Has been reprocessed. Okay, posterior effects and reincarnated. Like this one, has been reprocessed, has been reincarnated in half speed remasterings and on digital compact disc. The spare parts that make this possible are housed in a proliferating number of non-invasive environment in London where they may be viewed, fingered, sniffed, listened to by appointment. All of these may be viewed, may be fingered, may be sniffed, may be listened to by appointments. Okay, now what is being talked about here? Now this text is about a person who is talking about her recorded voice. Okay, and she says that the voice can be archived and they can become a part of the libraries, and people can listen to them even when the person is not around. And these voices, these can be electronically changed also, right? They can be beautified electronically, and so they become a part of the libraries, music libraries, and they stay there. Now, as you have seen that in the library, she says that it is odd for me as a human to find out myself shelved. Okay, as you know, in the libraries, books are cataloged and there are cards inside the books which give them numbers, right? So she becomes a part of the data that is lying in the library. A number is given to her. um, a human has been transformed into data. Okay, yeah, it's about the person's transformation from human to a voice which becomes a part of museums or libraries, and which can be electronically embellished, changed, whatever the people would like to do with it, but they would. So it it is a strange experience for this singer that her voice is part of, not part of a human, but part of the shells. Okay, and they can be put in the discs also. So the spare parts that make this possible are house, means they are placed in these places somewhere in London, and people can take the appointment and they can listen to the voice again. Okay, now what we have answered here is we have identified the verb constructions and what or who is the subject of the verb. So who is the subject of the verb? Probably who is the subject of the verb? Asifa has already answered, but what do you say? Who is the subject? Quickly, we are just running out of time also. So the subject that is missing here is a person, okay, whose voice has been recorded and whose voice has become a part of the museums or the libraries, image banks, or whatever. Okay, so the person is mentioned, but while the passive voice is being used, the subject is absent. So she says, yeah, it can, yes, I mean, it can be the narrator also, because we see it is used in the first person, but she generalizes it. Okay, the subject it isn't just one. Because she uses I, we come to know that one of the voices that are stored in the library or the museum, or those who where they are recorded in the compact disc, and those are available by appointment. So those can be listened to again. uh, she is just not talking about herself, but whatever voices have been recorded would be transformed from human to something non-living to something that can be listened to again. Okay, so basically passive voice here isn't used to hide the subject, but the subject is implied, and there is not just one subject. She's giving her example, but of course, in the whole museum, it can not be her voice. There perhaps are multiple voices that are stored after being recorded, and those are electronically available as well. So here, voice is used to give this writing stylistically a formal effect, and the aim isn't to hide the um, author or the narrator or the subject, but since there are multiple subjects and she wants to generalize what she's saying about her voice for the rest of the people as well, so passive voice helps her in doing so. Okay, now we are going to do the imperatives tomorrow. Please, it would be good if you give this small passage 8 a reading. Okay, because it is just a recipe, so if you get time you'll read the whole of it. We might cook also if we like the recipe, but it would be good if you can just um, read it at home so that we can save time in the next class. Okay, right. So I see you tomorrow. Do your readings, start doing the assignment, make your groups, tell about your group's members to Amen. And people who are not in the classes for no good reason, you know, should be attending the classes if they want their assignments to be accepted. Okay, just convey it to them. I'll see you tomorrow.